Hey friends, welcome back. Hope you're all doing well. I'm Mark. I'm a certified health coach, and this is Teresa. She's a board certified family nurse practitioner. We are with Total Health and Wellness. We like to talk about everything from hormones to metabolic health and everything in between. So, anyway, yes, it is very true. I can't even. I'm really starting off strong tonight. Wow. Tonight, we'd like to talk a little bit about surprising foods that can sabotage your weight loss. So, a lot of foods out there are considered okay for a low carb lifestyle, especially those keto-fied ones. You know, you go to the grocery store and it says keto this, keto that, and stuff. But some of them surprisingly aren't really that great for you for a keto or low carb or carnivore lifestyle. So you got to be careful. Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I think this is more for keto because carnivore is carnivore. Like,
yeah, that's
not
true.
That hard.
Yeah, I just kind of lumped the three of them together because they all, achieve kind of the same thing, which is nutritional ketosis. But yeah, carnivore, we talked about that a couple of nights ago, and that's the ultimate elimination diet. So if you want to start from scratch and kind of get into a low carb lifestyle and get into a state of nutritional ketosis and take out all other foods except meats and fats and some dairy and eggs and whatnot, and then kind of slowly and gradually work those foods back in until you start figuring out what foods your body agrees with and which ones they don't agree with your body. So anyway, to start off, did you have something you were getting ready to add? Yeah, to start off tonight, guys, we wanted to actually answer a question that one of our subscribers on YouTube had asked about. So this individual was a type 1 diabetic, and she was a little bit concerned about protein consumption on a carnivore diet, which obviously, you're going to be consuming a lot of protein. So Teresa is going to talk to that for a minute.
Yeah. So type 1s do have a very different response blood sugar wise to protein than people without type 1. So protein in type 1 can spike sugar more than you would think. So you're just going to have to really become in tune with your body. You have to get a CGM, and everybody has to get a CGM. Every person, no matter what disease state you have or don't have, should fiddle with a CGM for about a month. But anyway, on your CGM, you could really look and see how you respond to different types of meat. If they're fattier, probably you get less of a spike. But these are things that you'd have to figure out and find out on your own. But for sure, protein is different in type 1 diabetics than type 2, or than not having diabetes. So just start checking your sugar after you eat and see what you have to do, because every type 1 can be tricky, like as a provider, because everyone's type 1 is completely different.
Yeah. And what about those people who aren't necessarily a type 1 diabetic, so they're not constantly monitoring their blood sugar like a type 1 would be? What can they do to check their blood sugar? What's the easiest way to do it?
So anyone can get a CGM. We prescribe Freestyle Libre 3 at the office, and your physician, though, or your provider will say, you don't have diabetes, you can't do that. They can. All they have to do, there's a little in your electronic medical records, there's a note, internal note to pharmacy. And all I do is I write patient is self-pay, and they will download the reader app. So there's a reader app you download on your phone so you can scan the little thing on your arm. So you can definitely do that. It's about $140 for 2 sensors, which would last you a month. Otherwise, you can go to Stelo.com and order the Stelo CGM for $99.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great value.
Yeah, because even if you're not a diabetic yet, you want to make sure that the trajectory of food that you have is not going to lead you to that.
Yeah.
And then also, even if you're not a diabetic, you can see that your moods, irritability, and different things can be different compared to how high or how low your sugar goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fantastic information to have. And you keep a food journal along with the readings that the actual device is keeping on you. So you can compare, okay, at this time of day I ate whatever meal I ate, and this is what it did to my blood sugar.
Yeah, and how quickly you came back down to normal.
Yes.
Or how many units, if you're a type 1, how many units did you have to give for a steak fillet compared to ribeye, compared to fish or something like that.
Yes.
And then on YouTube, I'm not so sure. I know Dr. David or Richard Bernstein has a YouTube channel. He's a type 1 himself, endocrinologist. But on Facebook, there are 2 groups that are great. Type 1 Grit, and one is ONE typed out. Type 1 Grit, and they follow Dr. Bernstein, pretty much his evidence-based. And then the other one is Type 1 Diabetic Carnivores.
Yeah.
So
a couple different social media groups on different flavors of social media for you to follow.
Yep.
So, okay, good. And then also we'll drop the link to the Stelo Dexcom website, so you can order those monitors on there. I'll drop them for YouTube. I'll put them in the description section, and then for Instagram and Facebook, it'll be in the comments. So Teresa will drop those, and so you guys can kind of reference that. We'll have a bunch of other information podcasts Teresa's been on, links to our website. I might as well go ahead and throw out a little shout out to Rosette as well for Rosette's Mix. Her link is in there because we're talking about low carb foods.
Yep.
Her food is safe for low carb, so you can look at that. And
I've had patients eat her food with a CGM on.
Yeah,
and nothing happens
for sure. All right, so we're going to move into some of the sabotaging foods that we mentioned we were going to talk about tonight. But before I do that, I'm going to put a shameless plug. Just remember to link or subscribe to us right now if you haven't done it. I'm sorry, like or subscribe to us if you haven't done so. All right.
Yes.
So
why haven't you if you haven't?
Right.
Okay.
Hopefully nobody's just finding us by mistake. No. All right. So some sabotaging foods. So these are foods that, you would associate with being healthier and being okay to be on when you're in a low carb type way of eating. But in some cases, these are foods that you can overeat, or some maybe ingredients in certain foods that could actually sabotage a little bit. So the first one, and it surprises a lot of people, is various kinds of nuts. So yeah, I mean,
I can eat nuts like potato chips, which I did when I first transitioned to this way of eating. Now, I think that container of nuts has been in my pantry for a long time. On occasion,
yeah, you're doing good. You're doing really good. Yeah.
On occasion, I'll go get a handful. It's walnuts, cashews, pistachios, almonds, and hazelnuts, which I pick out. But I'll just get 2 handfuls and eat them, and it tastes so sweet to me now that it's just all I need. But I will go weeks without having any nuts. But when I first started, I could overeat nuts like potato chips.
So you're a moderator is what you're saying when it comes to nuts. You're an abstainer when it comes to desserts, but you're a moderator when it comes to nuts.
Yep.
So remember, we talked about this the other night too, the 3 types of eating that people do. They're indulgers, they're moderators, or they're abstainers altogether. So typically we abstain from foods altogether, but apparently Teresa likes to moderate every now and then. So I know me personally, like especially pistachios. Oh my gosh, if those things are salted, I'm done. Like I will eat those nonstop. You could put a bag of those big bags that they sell at Sam's Club, and I'll do the whole thing.
Well, it doesn't matter if you have to shell them yourselves, you'll still do that.
Oh yeah, shelling's just like, I don't know, it's like the texture and the fun or whatever, I guess. So anyway, the other one is berries, guys. So well, berries, seasonally, well, first of all, berries tend to be a little bit lower in sugar with regards to their content. Overall, most of them do, with regards to being safe for eating on a low carb type of way of eating. But you want to make sure that they're in season when you are consuming those. And the other thing is that's another one, you've got to moderate it, because there is sugar at the end of the day in those. And you got to be careful because they're easy to overeat. It's another one.
Yeah. And so I've been sick, as you guys can tell. My appetite has not been there, but I've been eating tons of berries.
Yeah.
And I even thought, okay, this is the last berry haul, which was Wednesday that we got. Like, I'm craving blackberries. I've honestly never in my life eaten blackberries. They're delicious and juicy, but so I'm eating that, and I'm not even worried about moderating it right now, because I am not barely eating. Like, that's a little dramatic, but I'm really not eating. So today was the first day I ate half of my steak. I ate the whole thing.
You did good. I'm really proud of you.
So, but yeah, that can really add up. And again, we've mentioned before, if you want to eat ancestrally appropriate, our ancestors did not have access to berries 24/7.
Well, and speaking of that, these berries that we buy, again, at Sam's Club, we found them, they're big, they're huge berries. These, I don't think, are the ones that were found in nature at any time before. I think these are being commercially grown, obviously, and they're probably modified in some way genetically to make them bigger and more sugary than wild berries, because we lived a couple of hours from where we live now in the Ozarks, and we used to have wild blackberries growing in our yard. And so those of you who live in the Midwest and certain parts of the Southeast and whatnot are probably used to that as well. But they're small. They're very small, and they're much more tart. Yeah, they're a lot less sugary and more tart. So I just don't feel like these berries that we're getting from the grocery store, even though they are technically berries and they're a little lower sugar, I think they're bigger and they're sweeter than they really are supposed to be. Yeah. So you got to be careful with that.
Yep. Again, know your personality. Know what kind of addict you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So another one is dairy products. And when I'm talking to dairy products, I'm talking about creams. So think of like, heavy whipping cream for your coffee or whatever you're adding that to. Teresa uses that in a lot of as an ingredient for a lot of the foods that we cook. Yeah. Or if you're talking about sour cream or yogurt or what was it? Cottage cheese.
Yogurt,
yeah.
you have to be really careful because you used to get full fat, plain Greek yogurt, and even
Yes.
a half cup was like 16 grams of carbs.
Yeah, there was a considerable amount of carbs, and I noticed that when I was eating that full fat yogurt, sometimes I had a little bit of an issue with my body fat percentage, kind of stalling. So I was measuring my fat at the time, and yeah, it would kind of stall it out a little bit. So I took that out, and that resolved pretty quickly. So for me, I was sensitive to that yogurt. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say I get most of my carbs in a day from heavy whipping cream.
Yeah, and then
my coffee
for sure, and then milk, of course. We're not huge fan. As much as I love to drink milk, as delicious
raw
as it is, raw milk, of course.
Yeah.
It's still it causes our blood sugar to raise a little bit more than we're comfortable with. So we just generally stay away from.
Oh gosh, raw milk. So that goes back to being part of the health rebellion we did last week.
That's right, we sure did.
We're part of the
we talked about that. Yep.
People.
We used to go straight to a dairy and get raw milk from a dairy. It was
goat
fresh.
Milk too. Oh my gosh.
And goat milk too. It was delicious. Mm-hmm. All right.
Anyway, if you put milk in your coffee, reconsider heavy whipping cream. If you put flavored creamer in your coffee, consider heavy whipping cream. If you put almond milk or oat milk in your coffee, consider heavy whipping cream.
Yeah.
Unless you have an allergy.
Yeah.
It is way better nutritionally than the other stuff, especially the creamer. That stuff is gross. It's just chemicals.
And be really careful if you're going out and getting your coffee and whatnot at Starbucks or one of the fast food type places. They tend to put things in there that might have sugar in them that you don't know about. Yeah. I used to go into Starbucks and I would order a coffee, and one time I came out and they had put in like a big gob of whipped cream on top of it and drizzled chocolate over it. And I walked out of my car and I opened the lid and I went to take a drink and I was like, what is this? And I go back in and she's like, I just thought it would be cute to throw that in there. And I'm like, okay. Thank you. I don't need you to be cute, but anyway. All right. So did you have anything else you wanted to talk about with foods? Okay. And the next thing we wanted to talk about was ingredients that can sabotage you, things you have to be careful with. So the first things are sugars and sugar substitutes. So the food companies, being really smart people who spend a lot of money on outsmarting us, they have come up with multiple different names. When I say multiple, I mean the last time I checked, it was like over 60 something names for sugar, but they don't call it sugar. So they're trying to hide the sugar in the product. So when you look at it, you're like, it doesn't have sugar in it if you're reading the ingredients. So hats off to you for reading the ingredients, but also learn what some of the ingredients are. So you do have to be careful with that. Things like maltodextrin and whatnot, those are hidden sugars. But some of the more or the less obvious ones that you might look at, and they're in some of these, and I pick up some of these keto-fied foods. Let's talk about that really quick. Let me slow down, okay? Keto-fied food. So when you go to a grocery store or a health food store and you have a food that they're advertising as keto-friendly or keto, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes you might bag up pork rinds that says it's keto-friendly or whatever, just because they want to throw it on there. But other foods that are keto-fied, when you look at the ingredients and it's got 40 or 50 ingredients and it's keto-fied and it's safe to eat supposedly, you've got to be really careful with that, because they'll put things like tapioca starch, rice starch, potato starch, all those ingredients in there, and those will actually cause your blood sugar to spike and then your insulin to spike as well. So it can sabotage your low carb way of eating. Mm-hmm. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah. So when people tell me they've gone gluten-free, so if you do gluten-free anything, it's tapioca, rice, or potato starch, for sure, usually.
Yeah.
And so that's just sugar, but there's no gluten. So you want a little bit beyond no gluten.
Yeah.
And sure. I also wanted to say, on one of my carnivore groups earlier this week, I saw that someone read their heavy whipping cream label and there was soybean oil in it. Are you kidding? Like vegetable oil?
Well, and that leads us to our next ingredient that can sabotage it, and that's industrial seed oils. So vegetable oil, canola oil, sunflower, safflower, you name it. Even your organic olive oil that you find, they're allowed to put 80% other types of oils in that, and only 20% of that product has to have olive oil in it, and they can call it pure organic olive oil.
Yeah. So on the back, you want it to say avocado oil or olive oil 100%.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to change the label until they get above whatever percent.
Yeah.
It's all just sneaky.
And don't let the USDA organic label or non-GMO label also fool you. Now, it's great. I'm glad that, products are going organic and they're going non-GMO and all that. That's fantastic. But don't let that lull you into a sense of security that that's somehow going to be safe for your low carb journey. Because in a lot of cases, it's not. I mean, you can have organic sugar, and at the end of the day, it's sugar. Okay. So that leads us into I don't know what do we want to call it, where you hear a lot of people talking about the good kinds of sugar.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so maybe organic sugar is a little bit better for you than regular sugar, and that it doesn't have like some offending ingredients. But at the end of the day, your pancreas doesn't know the difference between the two sugars. So you're getting sugar at the end of the day. So just because it's organic, don't let that fool you.
Yeah. Someone in our family gave the kids gummy bears one time, and she was like, it was organic gummy bears.
It was organic gummy bears, and I'm sure that the kids thought they were delicious. I'm sure she thought they. Oops, I said the gender.
I did
so
too.
She, yeah. So anyway,
yeah. What were we just talking about before that? Seed oils.
Seed oils.
I do believe that seed oils is probably more damaging to us than the actual carbohydrates. However, refined processed foods include carbohydrates and seed oils.
Yeah, almost all of them.
Remember, in nature, how God designed this planet, there's no food existing in nature that is fat and carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Okay, we've just made those up, like Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes, Twinkies, cupcakes, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. And so, and honestly, most of at least some of the industrial seed oils where this whole thing came about with was, it was a byproduct of machine lubricants and oil and whatnot. And so, these manufacturers who had this leftover byproduct, they needed to find a way to use it for something. And so someone came up with the brilliant idea of let's market it as a food-like product or something that's safe to put in food. So an example would be cottonseed oil. Like, we have never consumed cotton as a human as part of our dietary intake. It just doesn't. But all of a sudden now you can squeeze the cotton and, get oil out of it. And then you can use a byproduct of that, which is the cottonseed oil, and you can suddenly consume this. It was a machine lubricant, for crying out loud. So anyway, just be careful, guys, is all we're trying to say. We could harp on that for a long time.
It's gross.
Anything else that you wanted to?
No, just those like cakes and stuff that say keto.
Yes.
So, I don't really want you having to do a calculus problem to figure out, oh, this is keto. So you take your carbs minus your alcohols, minus your fiber, minus your blah, blah, and then it's 4 grams of carbs. You just want whatever the carbs are.
And you talk about not sustainable. If you've got to do math problems to figure out if a food is sustainable or not, appropriate for you to eat, whether it fits your macros, that's not sustainable either. You're making it much more difficult on yourself than it needs to be. Stick to the outside perimeter of the store. Eat the naturally low carb foods. Just because it's outside the outside perimeter of the store does not mean that there aren't also some bad stuff in there. But if you stay away from the aisles and you don't get sucked in by the checkout lane and all the stuff that's on your right and left flank as you're going through the checkout lane, you'll probably be okay. You'd be much better off anyway. So
I remember our kids were very young, but we were behind someone that had a kid, and the kid grabbed a candy bar off the checkout line. And my kids looked at me and they were like, people really do that? Like, because they've never...
Crazy.
It just wasn't what we did.
Yeah, for a time, and then the kids, they grow into their own and they do their own thing. So.
They have money, they have a car.
Yeah. So. All right. Yeah. Well, so most everything we're talking about, I'll just remind you guys, is going to be down in the descriptions and the comment section. So look out for that. If you have any questions, shoot them our way. What we'd like to start doing is actually answering questions in the first part of our videos we do here. So if you guys have some questions or whatever, put them in the comments, and then we can start answering those over, the different videos that we do.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do that. And it's also great for us because you're interacting with us. And so it helps us on our feeds. It helps us get a little bit more attention brought to us. So that's all good.
And remember, consistency is key.
Yeah.
Consistency over intensity. We all know those people that are like, I'm going to fill in the blank. And they fill in the blank hardcore, like 24/7 for about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then they peter out. So we want consistency, not intensity.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I always say, I want progress. Even thinking about what you need to do is forward progress to me. And so we need progress, not perfection. You don't have to kill yourself before you even get started. Like, well, I can't do it anyway because it won't be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect.
Yeah.
We all need to find our groove. We all need to find, some people do full fat, keto or carnivore. Some people do low fat. You got to find what's good for you.
Yep. And take those small baby steps. But the important thing is to take that first step. And then from there, you can build momentum and you get a snowball effect, and then things will start falling into place. But you got to take that leap initially and then just take small, realistic steps. And you're going to have it, guys. Sometimes it's going to be 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and so you have to give yourself grace. So when we fail, which you're going to fail, we all fail multiple times a day sometimes. You just have to give yourself grace and then pick up and move on from there. But anyway, all right. Well, at the end of the day, we love you guys
so much.
God bless you. And we'll see you all next time. And remember, food matters. Bye.